Care Services, because there's no place like home.
Good morning and happy South Florida Saturday. Welcome once again to Limitless Health Horizons right here on Legends Radio, brought to you, of course, by Horizon Care Services. Excellence in private duty home care. Listen, when it comes to in-home care, there is no one better than Horizon. They cover, pretty much every eventuality, and then even beyond that, there's so much to it. They're very service-oriented, and Horizon Care Services really does. They lead with the heart. They lead with love and real care for the people who need their services. You can learn more by heading on over to horizoncareservices.com, horizoncareservices.com, or by calling 561-776-7757, 561-776-7757. And with me, as always, one of my very favorite people in the world, and the reason I tend to have a big smile on my face on these Saturday mornings, my friend Andrea Albertini, who is founder, owner of Horizon Care Services, and it's always great to see you. How are you, Andrea?
Good morning. I'm wonderful, Michael. How are you this morning?
Good. I realized I went a long time without taking a breath there, I think.
I know. How amazing it is.
I don't know.
Now you got to start singing.
I know. I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I get very happy when I'm with you here in the studio because your energy is always so good. I know you bring that to the care of the people who need care at Horizon Care Services. It's so comprehensive. And let's talk. Now, it's an interesting topic today. We're going to get into that in just a minute. And we've got a great guest today. The personality,
I'm so excited.
I love it. She's really wonderful. She has so many letters and initials after her name. It might take me a while to get through them all. But let's talk just a minute about the services that Horizon Care Services offers when it comes to people who need the care. And then we're going to talk about the care for caregivers. There's a lot to get to.
Yes, absolutely. So some of your listeners, by the way, thank you again for tuning in to Limitless Health Horizons. We're happy that you're sharing your Saturday with us. Mm-hmm. And I'm always here to bring new information every single Saturday and hope that you guys are enjoying that. But I have dedicated 20 years of my life with this company, Horizon Care Services, that I actually founded. And we provide long-term care for seniors at home. Anything and everything that you can possibly imagine, from med management to custodial care to trachs and vents and ostomies, care management, anything and everything that you can imagine, senior placement.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one. We do very well with that,
right?
Because we want to make sure that they're going to the right place. We want to make sure that they know all the extra charges, because there's levels. There's some places there has level of care. Right. They're not told that. Next thing you know, they run out of money. So you know me, Mike, I'm out there 60 hours a week.
I've known you for a lot of years, and I see you on the road all over this. I thought I get everywhere for events. Mm-hmm. I can't turn my head without seeing you driving by somewhere, going somewhere to help somebody.
Well, I service from Port St. Lucie all the way down to Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I am out there driving.
Yeah, big time.
I'm out there driving everywhere and seeing case managers and physicians and the law attorneys and just basically helping people. Most of our caregivers has been with us for 20 years.
Over 60% of your staff, right?
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah. And they're pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And most of my full-time staff has been with me for a long time as well. And, we just celebrated 20 years.
Yes, we did. Happy belated once again.
Thank you. 3 weeks ago. So that to me was a big accomplishment. You know what? One of the things that makes me proud.
What's that?
Is that we are deficiency free.
Right.
And that for ACA, for our healthcare administration, is really, really important. And it shows the work that we put in to recruit the right caregivers, to make sure the documents are in order, to make sure that all of our paperwork is done accordingly to the state laws.
Right.
And so that another thing that makes me proud of Horizon.
You have a lot to be proud of with Horizon Care Services. And obviously the services are so necessary for people who are older, for the seniors who need the care. But one of the things we've been talking about lately, and it's been a good thing to focus on, so I think we should continue it today.
Yes.
It's like the old question of who watches the watchman, right?
Yeah.
Who cares for caregivers? Because there are people who try to do it themselves. And I understand that. Like, I get it. You want to, I'm going to be there for my parents. I'm going to be there for my spouse. They're older than me. They need the care. Who better than me to take care of them, right? I know them better. And I know that sounds like a beautiful and generous thing to do. But the toll that caregiving takes on the people who are trying to provide that care, if they're not professionals, it's exhausting. The mortality rate among caregivers is incredibly high.
Yes.
People really don't know what they're getting into with this.
Exactly.
And, we've had some fantastic guests to talk about this. It's a very common thing. And today we're going to work with someone who has really been right kind of in the thick of this.
Yes.
And we're talking about Christine Moran. Now, Christine is an RN, MSN, a CCM, certified case manager. And she's a manager for case management for a major South Florida health system. Christine, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, how's everybody doing?
We are doing very well. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's fantastic to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about this. When it comes to caregiving and individuals trying to provide that care when they may not really know what they're getting into, what's it like? What's it all about? What do you see as a case manager happen with some caregivers like that?
Well, what happens is we get to know a patient, and usually you get to know that caregiver because 99% of the time it's a direct family member and usually a spouse, unless something else is in the situation. And when we meet these people, especially someone who's chronically ill people are sick for a very long period of time, and
Right.
so it progresses, it gets worse, so they require more and more care. So you're introduced to the patient, and then you meet the caregiver who you can see that they have been from 1 to 100 with this patient, and there's no hope in sight. And there's not a lot of support in the communities. A lot of times these people come in here and they're barely making it themselves, and they're taking care of someone chronically ill who really needs a lot of care.
It makes me think about almost like dealing with the stages of mourning, right? Like when somebody passes away. It almost seems like they go through that twice. Like the people who are caregiving often have to deal with all of those stages and the emotional havoc that they cause while their loved one is still alive. It's just occurring to me. I see it. They go through denial. They go through bargaining. They go through all of these different things while they are still trying to care for someone. Let's talk about the toll that takes on their emotional health, Christine.
That is a big one because, Harry Kubler-Ross, she did the study, and they mourn the death of the relationship. If someone's mental status is changing, now you've got somebody who's not cognitive. They're not cognizant enough to communicate well with the spouse. The spouse is there all by themselves, trying to navigate through this big, humongous world full of insurance and red tape and authorizations and no support for them. And they literally go through all the steps when the person's alive, and then they start over when they lose them. It's unfortunate. Actually, it's a travesty at times.
It really is. And I'm thinking even more about this because I'm thinking, look, I'm a 12-stepper, right? And I'm always very open about that. I'm someone who's in AA, and I have been for quite a few years. And I think about a lot of people who need care, who are getting care, who may have become addicted to things like painkillers or something like that over the course of their illness, and they have substance issues. And then you also get the stress of taking care of them when you have access to their medication. And I'm sure there are people that give into that temptation, and caregivers who become addicted to things while they're trying to handle it, and then that leads to less medication. Wow, what a web this is.
Medication-wise, yes, because they handle those medications quite easily, and the sicker someone becomes, the more readily that is available. And then you have the addictive personalities who psychologically become so depressed they become addicted. That defines them as a caregiver. And they can't step out of the box and be people. They have to just be caregivers. And they start to do this in their entire lives. It takes over.
And you think about that, and this is another one, because more and more people are entrepreneurial these days than they've probably ever been, or they're just trying to deal. They're trying to keep their own house in order, whether it's your basic bills or things like running a business or dealing with finances, and all of a sudden they're trying to do all that on top of everything else. What a toll it must take.
It's impossible because a lot of times
use that word, but it sounds like
it's an impossible situation. Talk about caught in the middle, because a lot of times they are the only caregiver and the only breadwinner. This person has now stopped working, and if we know anything about government programs and disability and things, a lot of times it's carried by that caregiver all the way.
Right.
Money-wise, finance-wise, insurance-wise. Remember, if you have somebody who's very elderly, yes, they will be with the retirement part of their life. But if you get someone who's a little younger, then the caregiver is usually working, trying to maintain the health insurance that's taking care of them as well. And they lose themselves.
Wow.
They lose themselves.
I'm sure you've seen personally some pretty brutal examples of that.
It's been very tough. It's been tough. I actually had a patient's wife have a nervous breakdown standing at his bedside. And the patient was doing quite well, and she just lost it. Voices, the whole thing, convinced that she was going to save the world, had the stigmata. We had a lot of things to do for this person.
Wow.
And now you leave a person with no caregiver while you Baker Act the other person to try to give them a rest, and now you've created about 10 more problems that on top of the ones they already had.
And and then here comes my question.
Sure.
With your experience working with the major hospitals in New York City as well, and in here, what would you say? What could they do? Like I'm talking about, people were in between 40s and 60s. What can you do to prevent those things from happening? We talked about a little bit on my show before about estate planning. We talk about guardianship. So I want your side of.
Well, estate planning really runs into the financial part of things, and a lot of times, if it's done well, that money's waiting there so that there is money to private hire, get a little assistance, get a little help. All right, but not everybody's in that position.
Right.
All right, not everybody can even think that far ahead, and if it's a younger patient, they haven't gotten there. So it's a discussion that they might have had, like on their honeymoon, and haven't discussed it in 20-something years, and now we should have done that, and now we've got somebody gravely ill, and it changes things when you start to estate plan with someone who's already diagnosable and has a diagnosis, whether it be psychological or physical, because what happens is then there's a lot of things that you can't qualify for because that's a pre-existing condition and it excludes patients. So family members then have to get creative. So you have a caregiver who's trying so hard to come up with ways to cover all the bases, and it wasn't exactly done right. And with the Caregiver Act that came into play from Medicare, patients just designate this caregiver, and that's it. That's it. As soon as it's designated, it all falls on you. Done. And until that patient rescinds it, it will continue to fall on you. That's the new act that from Medicare. So it's hard. It's very hard. Some people think they're ready. They're not ready. And then we have this poor caregiver standing here at a patient's bedside for the 14th time in a year. They're back in the hospital, and they're trying to keep them out of the hospital, and the expense and the co-pays and all this other stuff can break the bank and break a person.
And a lot of the time, the person that's receiving the care may not really fully understand that the toll it's taking on the caregiver. I remember talking. I was talking to Burt Reynolds once about acting, and he said, "I work really hard to make it look this easy." Right? And you see that with caregivers. They want to make it as easy as possible as the person they're taking care of, so they don't show that weight. No. They don't show the cracks. The person being cared for may not even really understand.
No, and I think one of the things that I have seen in my business a lot, because, we specialize in long-term care with Horizon.
Yes.
And most of our patients are long-term care. I mean, we do have short-term too, but most of them, because that's what we specialize on.
Right.
Either you have money or don't have money. When it comes to the psychological issue that a family goes through being a caregiver, sometimes money is not even enough. So then what do you do? And that's another discussion that we had where we tried to bring in a therapist to the home, a social worker therapist to the home, to not just counsel the caregiver, but also counsel the person who are sick, because sometimes they get very ornery and very abusive and on denial.
Oh, yes.
And that situation can play a very serious psychological reaction on that caregiver.
It's true.
Very true.
Especially when you have addiction.
And I know that, again, that's a bigger issue than ever. And I know the pandemic actually played right into that.
Oh, the pandemic just put it right out there for everybody.
I mean, right after that, when you combined isolation, boredom,
and depression,
access, depression, and people saying, "Hey, look at me! I can drink during the day now." Which I know that happened. I saw it play out live on Facebook, and saw friends of mine that all of a sudden had issues that didn't have issues going into it.
And I think more is the fear, because you got to remember, some of us are very strong, and some of positive.
Sure.
But some people are just very fearful.
Sure.
And they're thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? We're on lockdown. So you're right. I mean, COVID did a lot of damage to a lot of people. And a lot of people that I know. I mean, I know what it took for us with Horizon Care Service, because we have a very large caseload of long-term care patients.
Right.
I know what it took for us
Yeah.
to be able to keep those patients alive because they were locked down at home. Thank God we live in the state of Florida where the caregiver can at least go out and get some fresh air.
Yes. It's
Sit
true.
at the bench, sit outside, sit by the pool, maybe get in a car with the client, take them to the beach a little bit.
Even just take a cruise with the windows open, right? I know.
Something just to breathe. So I do feel bad up north when people are cold and it's snowing. It was probably worse.
It was worse. I've only been in Florida for 6 months.
So you know what I mean.
So I know what I mean, because we went on lockdown in March and it was freezing cold. And you wouldn't bring any elderly people out into the world because they were one of the most, susceptible to this. We had no vaccines. And so they were on lockdown. Wow. And they were locked down with a caregiver who was a captive audience. And it's taken its toll. It really has taken its toll. We meet the caregivers in the hospital all the time, and these, not everybody. So I don't want to generalize, but not everybody. But we meet people who are chronically ill, and you can see that the caregiver is tired, very tired.
You add all these things together, and I think it's so important because, the caregivers fall through the cracks.
They do.
It's
always
the focus, and I get it. The focus is on the person who needs the care, which I understand, right? I mean, they're the ones who can't necessarily take care of their own activities of daily living, right? They're the ones who have often hit a certain age, and it's like, okay, well, you've earned a little rest and a little help, or you have all these issues, and you've earned someone helping you. But when it's somebody in the family trying to help, and especially if there are mental or emotional issues with the person being cared for, that caregiver can fall right through and just be so invisible and so hurt by it. And then businesses suffer. Like we talked about earlier, it can be quite a domino effect.
Oh, absolutely. But one of the things that there is help out there when it comes to Horizon Care Services,
Very true.
If they wanted to have a respite, maybe have somebody come in during the night so you can sleep at night.
Right.
Or have somebody come during the day so you can go get your nails done, your hair done. Maybe sit in the beach with a book for a couple hours, or if you just want to put your loved one on an assisted living for 2 weeks for respite, which we can assist to do that as well.
What a great benefit. I didn't know you could do that.
You can. So let's say you go on vacation. Let's say you were the care for your mother or father.
Sure.
You can actually put them in respite and go away for a couple of weeks on vacation.
What a great the thing is, and that's the thing is, with all this out there is help for it.
There is help for it, but again, everything else is private pay.
Right.
And I always say all the time, it doesn't matter what age you are. I think from the time you get married, I think it should be estate planning that you should make it for yourself just in case those things happen. And I understand sometimes you don't think about it until you're in your 60s,
right?
And you see all this stuff that's happening with people around you,
right?
And you're like, oh my God, what do I do? And as a case manager, with Christine, is she sees both. She sees the people who can afford the service that I provide to make their life easier,
right?
And she also sees those that doesn't have any resources,
right?
And I think that's the biggest frustration for any case manager.
It really is. With no resources, you're really trying to create something out of nothing. And our biggest tip-off when caregivers are exhausted is that the patients are constantly coming back to the hospital and they're not really that bad in our emergency room.
Right.
And because these people are exhausted and they're begging for help and they won't put themselves out there to ask you. They just sort of step in and they will not ask for help. And you really have to be cognizant of what's going on and speak to somebody. Sit them down with a social worker who can do a little therapy and do a little digging and see what we can get you, because you're not any help to anybody if we're going to lose you too. So that's what we try to do.
Let's talk a little more about that. Let's talk about some of the help that is out there for caregivers. Let's talk about the silver linings to some of this that we can track down. As far as the care for the caregivers, I think that concept of being able to talk to a social worker about it and at least get something out of that is very helpful. What else? Are there any legal things that people can do if necessary, if they need to take control of them in a different way? What are some of the other options out there?
Well, I always tell people, call yourself an elder care attorney, even if the person you're caring for is not elderly, because you can get a lot of information over the phone for free that will direct you in a direction. You might be better speaking to someone you do not know,
Right.
which
I
is
can see
why,
that.
as a hospital case manager, we get a lot of information that suddenly this person probably wouldn't have shared with other people that they know, but they don't know us. So they tend to be a little more honest when you do a little digging. We try to get them into the community with their own support,
Okay.
and that's rough.
But again, it's good that that's there. And elder care attorneys that's a massive resource. Not everybody
That's
thinks
when
of.
I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And we have some wonderful elder law attorneys that we work with. One in Boca that I love, Barry Siegel. Absolutely amazing. And he's incredible.
Yeah.
And we know each other for probably about 20 years.
There you
Actually,
go.
I'm going to see him tomorrow.
Okay.
Actually.
That's the thing about it, is that, and that's where Horizon Care Services comes in. That's where good case managers come in, like our guest Christine Moran, is in finding the help that is out there. Horizon, your in-home care is the best there is. It is, just because of the way you lead, the quality of your professional caregivers. You know what you're doing with it. If you need that in-home care long-term, Horizon is the choice. 561-776-7757 is their number, 561-776-7757. But your network, Andrea, and your own personal generosity, because I know you and I know that you refer people to whatever help is there for them. Whether, and this is the amazing part to me, whether or not it benefits your company. I mean, you're someone who will say, look, this is not something that we get paid for, but here's someone that can help you.
Oh, absolutely.
That's like
absolutely,
sadly relatively unheard of, but it's something you do. Let's talk a bit about some of those connections that you have and some of the ways that Horizon can help.
Well, Mike, when we do anything and everything, because we almost like a property manager. We're not a property manager, but
it's a good analogy, though. It really is.
It is, because you got to remember, and we talked about it in my show before. I do a lot of care management for patients who doesn't need a caregiver.
Right.
So, I have a cute patient of mine that I love, which is very active, that just, unfortunately, just needed, a new well in his house.
Right.
So my care manager comes in and, Mr. So-and-so, what's going on with you? Well, I haven't taken a shower for a couple of days because my well is broken. So we got his well fixed in less than 24 hours.
Got it done.
Got it done. It's like anything and everything. They need a custom wheelchair van. Like anything that you can think of it. I have been a big resource for all of our seniors in our community.
Well, another one that I just love, and this one again, because I have the memories about this I talked about with my mom and my dad, and when my dad was helping out with my mom so much, is that medication management.
Oh, that's very important.
That's a massive thing when you've got 5 pharmacies and 4 at this one and 3 at this one, 2 at this one, plus the over-the-counters. And this has to be taken at different times this day, and don't take this one on this day. And there may be an interaction here, but no one knows because it was 3 different doctors who prescribed these 3 different things. You have ways of kind of bringing it all together and dealing with that. I know there have been cases when people have been able to reduce some of the medications they have because, well, this one's redundant and this one causes the effect when combined with this one that makes this one necessary. You know what I mean? You're able to come in and help out a lot with that.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said before, we do a lot of med management without having a caregiver. You don't need to have a caregiver to do med management. Sometimes people just get out of the hospital with so many medication that they are confused.
Yeah.
And they need to have that nurse to come in and organize the whole thing for them. So we do that as well. So
the thing really is that it's stressful for everybody involved. It's a situation that is very, very challenging. If someone needs care in the first place, you've got challenges. If you're trying to take care of that care on your own, those challenges, they're multiplied exponentially, right? It's not even a geometric progression, it's exponential. And that is where Horizon Care Services comes in the first place. Get the caregivers, the one who can come into your home, that you can trust to be with the people that you love. If you are someone, it's your parents that need the care, you know that they're in the right hands with the caregivers there. You can rest easy at night because they're properly cared for. If you are someone who is trying to do this on your own as a caregiver, which I know sounds great, but I can't say I recommend it, the care beyond that is something that Horizon can also help you with, help to make those ends meet and tie up the loose ends, and also refer to this vast network of people. And there are wonderful people out there like Christine Moran, who is a case manager the manager of case management, in fact, for a major South Florida health system, who has access to those answers, who has access to the right people that can help you out. The bottom line is you don't have to do it alone.
Exactly. We are all a phone call away.
And that's what it is. And I know that your phone calls tend to be returned very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. After 5 o'clock, nights and weekends, they have a 15-minute rule to call back.
Okay.
If they have a voicemail. We're always there. We're not a push 1, push 2, push 3.
Right.
We want to be able to be available to clients when they call. We're still the old-fashioned agency.
That's the service, though.
That's the service.
But that's really what it's about. And again, what we've talked about a lot today is the effect on human beings, right? And I think that's the important thing here, is that everybody involved is a human being. The people who need the care, human beings. The caregivers, if they're family members, human beings. The caregivers who work for the agencies, human beings. Everybody involved is looked at as a person through Horizon. And that's, as you said, it's an old-fashioned way to look at it, but I think it's the right way to look at it too. It's what sets you apart, certainly.
Exactly, absolutely. It's being there, it's being honest. We're not a franchise.
No.
This is my baby, my child, my baby, and I'm very proud of what I created.
Well, if you look at the history, I mean, again, it's a statistic we've mentioned before, but 20 years in business, 60% of your caregivers have been with you since you started. And that says so much. So we've had people who've used the care here on the air with us. We've had some of your other connections and contacts on the air with us here. We've got Christine today on the air with us here. And in the end, that team's going to be able to help you meet your challenges when it comes to caregiving. So reach out to Horizon Care Services today, horizoncareservices.com, or 561-776-7757, 561-776-7757. Excellence in private duty home care for the people who need the care, and also ways to help out the people who are trying to provide that care, because again, they understand better than anybody the toll that it takes on the people involved. Christine, I want to say thank you so much for what you do and for the time that you took to be with us here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And I thank you because she's on vacation. So she took a day off from her vacation to be here.
Oh, being with us is practically a vacation.
It's nothing but a party.
That's it, right? We have a great time off the air on the show as well, in full disclosure, because we're good friends for a lot of years. But the care really is what it's all about in the end. And Andrea, thank you for the care that you provide and just for being who you are and being my dear friend as well.
Thank you so much for the listeners. And thank you, Mike. And thank you, Christine, for being here and sharing information with our listeners.
That's it. Limitless Health Horizons, Horizon Care Services, horizoncareservices.com, horizoncareservices.com, or 561-776-7757. Mike McGann here with you. Limitless Health Horizons on Legends. Have a great Saturday.
Horizon Care Services, because there's no place like home.